But today we are here to deal with the need, because I said, let us talk about, we did a podcast where we're discussing leadership challenges in South Africa, and we said, what is the way forward? And the podcast came as a result of the unrest that we saw during July 2021. Then we did a podcast. It will be uploaded on YouTube probably today or tomorrow. And then I said, let us do what we were doing back in 2019, which is Nsikayezwe closed global closed leadership sessions, and where I picked certain individuals to come and attend these sessions. As you are here today, so which means if we have a session on September, you need to come back for the next 6 months, because we want to achieve a certain purpose. And then next year we start a new group. But since we are here today, we won't accept any excuse. On September, there will be no excuse. On October, November, and December. So we're going to be coming back here every month to deal with. This is just part one. As I said here, this is part one. So I said, let us deal with what are the challenges. Challenges facing our NAP specifically this time is not about Africa, it's about South Africa. The challenges. The first one that we need to deal with, South Africa is the most unequal country in the world in terms of wealth. That's a challenge. You can't ignore that. The fact that I was reading that the wealth, I think 20% of individuals are controlling 70% or 80% of the resources in South Africa. So there is what we call unfair equal distribution of South African resources. And this has been a persistent challenge ever since 1994. It's a challenge, because I want to justify why I say we need leadership in South Africa. That's the first one. The second one, the highest rate of unemployment. You saw what I posted, I think, on Wednesday, that we have become the first country in the world that has the highest number of unemployment. The rate is too high. So I think before they released the statistics, we're sitting at 7.2 million people are not employed. Now sitting at 7.8 million. And we're talking about those who are looking for work. I don't think we're including those who have given up. So it's higher. And that's why I said there's a need for leadership in South Africa. Because once you see these challenges, then you must know something is missing in a country. Then the third one is about human rights, which are being threatened. I'm worried about the human rights that are being threatened. Our human rights are being threatened in South Africa. So you can't freely express your opinion because you can be arrested. And the evidence, if you look at what happened to few people in the past 3 months, you can see that our human rights are being threatened. We are still dealing with the controversy around the arrest of the former president. Many people are saying even myself, I'm saying his human rights were violated. And the more we try to push, and we are being vocal about that, we are being threatened as well. So freedom of speech is being threatened in South Africa. You can be arrested for supporting someone who was arrested unlawful. Let's say even his arrest was lawful. But I'm saying in a normal case, you don't threaten people for freedom of speech. You must be allowed to criticize anyone. That's what the Constitution says. I must be allowed to criticize judges, because judges are human beings. They are not God. I think I remember talking to you, Temba, that judges are not above God. So I can criticize a judge. And I made an example of that man in the Bible, the servant, that when God said to him, put your house in order, you're about to die, the man cried and said, God, I've walked before you uprightly. And then God changed his decision. So can you see, you can even argue with God, put facts, and then God said, no, it's fine. I'm going to give you 15 years. So who are the judges of South African constitutional courts, high courts, and Supreme Court of Appeal that cannot be criticized. You cannot argue with them. You cannot tell them that this time around, I think you made a mistake. So when you do that, you are threatened. So we've got a problem. Number 4, there's uncertainty. We're dealing with uncertainty. So as a result of uncertainty, no one knows what will happen tomorrow. We are living with soldiers on the street. So you don't know whether tomorrow your house can be bombed, or you can be arrested for protesting, or anything. So there's uncertainty. We don't know whether by 2022 we'll still have a president in this country. There's uncertainty. So once there's an uncertainty, then you must know that you need leadership. Because I said last time, leadership brings order. Leadership brings confidence. Leadership brings discipline where there's no discipline. Leadership brings certainty where there's uncertainty. So currently in South Africa, we're living in a country where there's a lot of uncertainty. So these are just few challenges. Remember, this is part 1. I'm going to summarize them. Then part 2, I'm going to go look into these things in detail. So then I said why I'm saying we've got a problem of leadership is because those who are in positions of authority are lacking something called conviction. They lack conviction. And my statement again, when I'm with Themba, and I know he knows it by heart, someone was asking, they saw me yesterday, say, but who put Themba? Because I've been sharing videos, WhatsApp message, the clips on WhatsApp saying Themba. Now again, Themba, you will recall Themba. So when they see me, where is Themba? So Themba, you are now famous. But what I was, when I'm with Themba, I always repeat the statement that leadership is not wealth. It's not wealth in Mbomvu. I can be wealthy, but if you don't question the source of my wealth, you have not done enough. So you cannot therefore, because of my wealth, and then say Erick is leadership. He can become a leader because he is wealthy, not knowing how I have acquired that wealth. It must be an honest wealth. Secondly, I said leadership is not what? It's not influence. I can influence people into a wrong direction. So if ngwazi ukukhuluma ngithanda abantu, that does not make me a leader. Because tomorrow someone can buy me, give me money to say something which might destroy humanity. So leadership is not influence. And leadership is about you discovering the reason why you are born, serving a higher purpose which is higher than your private ambitions. You discover something which is higher than your private ambitions. Which something that doesn't benefit you alone, but something that will benefit us as a continent, as a country, as a world. So that's what we call leadership. And then I said, then the problem, leadership begins when you are convinced, fully convinced that this time around, I am right. Conviction. Conviction can make you leave your comfort zone. That's conviction. So those who are in authority, they lack conviction. And I define conviction, that conviction is a strong persuasion or belief. That's a conviction. You are not a leader if you don't have what you call conviction. I'm not talking about the legal conviction which finds you guilty. No, I'm talking about this one. A strong persuasion or belief about something. The feeling of being sure that what you believe or say is true. That's conviction. So those who are in position of authority today in South Africa, they lack this. A strong belief that is not likely to change. Or the strong belief that you believe are right, a fixed and a firm belief. That's a conviction. Conviction will make you fight people when no one doesn't understand why you are fighting them. That's conviction. So those who are in authority are lacking this. Their beliefs. So as a result, when you lack conviction, you can be tossed to back and forth by anyone because you don't have something that you can stand on. The conviction, as I said, will make you leave your comfort zone. Conviction made me resign from my work. That's a conviction. Because you know, if I don't live here, I will die. Not physically, but my being, Erick Sithole as a being will die. So I need to leave this environment. That's conviction. Conviction will make you leave a place where there's certainty to a place where there's uncertainty. So you leave your workplace, you go and start your business. No one has told you that you will be successful, but you leave based on what? Conviction. So those who are leading us today, they lack conviction. They don't have strong beliefs about what needs to be done in this country. Why I'm saying that? Because they cannot stand for anything. If you tell them today, you speak against so and so, then they keep quiet. Because conviction prepares you to suffer. So you know before you speak out that these will be the consequences. Then you ask yourself a question: am I ready to continue with this? That's a conviction. So we've seen many leaders. Martin Luther King, they had conviction. So they knew exactly what they were doing when they were fighting the injustices in America. And we saw some of the leaders in South Africa. They have lived, they have passed away, they had convictions. So conviction will prepare your mind that if you must die for this, then die. Then the question, those who are leading us, do you think they can die for a greater good of this country? I doubt. Instead of having people who are convinced, who have convictions, we have people who are interested in entertainment. They like to be entertained. Where even us as a generation, we're a generation that likes to be entertained. Hence, you have so many people who pretend to be comedians or brand influencers because they don't want to risk their lives for a greater good of a country. A conviction will tell you that if you speak out against Mr. Ngubane, your brand will be tainted. That's a conviction. But are you prepared to take that risk? If you are convinced. So some of the people who are leading us today, they know what is right. They know what is right, but they lack conviction. Why? Because if they start speaking out, they might be fired from their cabinet positions. Those are people who are leading us. They rather die than losing their jobs. So their jobs are more important than the greater good of a country. Hence I said, so we have people who are lacking conviction. They can't stand for nothing. They don't want to stand. I said last time, I'm very disappointed looking at what is happening in South Africa by the leadership of KZN. I said it. It's on record. Because when things were going wrong, they kept quiet. But we said, this is not right. Get involved. They kept quiet. And when they started seeing the masses, that many people are talking against it, then they followed. So, do you have leaders then? People who will listen first. That, okay, today, Ngobeko, Tandazani, Mbomvu, Tabis are saying this. Okay, we can now speak out in line with what people want. That's not a leader. A leader speaks when it's not fashionable to do so, based on a conviction. A leader speaks out against injustice, based on convictions, when it is not fashionable to do so, without fearing of the consequences that may happen. As we are here today, I also know that some may come to me and attack me. I don't care. I've dealt with bigger things than the threats. I think there was a time in my life where I was facing to be dismissed from work based on my convictions, but I fought through. I remember I told you the story. Fought through and through because I said to them, this is not just. This is not just. So if you have to take me to a panel of people who have to decide about my fate in this organization, do so. I will gladly tell them that what you are doing is not allowed. Aren't you afraid to lose your job? No, I'm not. As long as I lose my job because I stood up for something, it's okay. I didn't. So I'm saying you will always be tested. Convictions, a sense of conviction will allow you to conquer something privately first before you go out in public. So you need to be convinced privately that I can do this no matter what happens. That's a conviction. Someone said, faith is when you decide to take the first step when you cannot see the rest. That's a conviction on its own, which means I have to do this. Because if I don't do this, I will die. Not physical, but you as a human being, your being, you can die for not following your conviction. There is a man that said, I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither height nor what? No depth. Neither present nor future. I am convinced. The man said that. So the man said, I've come to a point in my life where I've realized that nothing can separate me from this belief. Do you remember that man? Paul. So that's what I'm talking about. Conviction. You need to be prepared for what you were born to do. Discover yourself and be prepared to become yourself, no matter what it costs. That's a conviction. Now, as a result, because I want to appeal towards a certain point, I said, as a result, we don't have people, they want to take everything that they are taught. That's true. You teach them something they don't question. There are people who believe that everything that is legal is right. And I want to show you why I said we need leadership in South Africa. There's a notion in South Africa right now which says everything that is legal is right. So once it's legal, it's right. And here's my statement. Legal does not mean right or just. And I will justify that. Legal does not mean right or just. Because today there can be a law in this country which says you are not allowed to go and stay in Palito. It's legal. Is that right? So legal does not mean right or just. Let me justify my statement. If you look at the Jim Crow laws in America, these laws were legal. They were operating in America 1877 into the 1960s. What happened here? I said many Christians and theologians taught that whites were chosen people, blacks were cursed to be servants, and God supported what? Racials. These things were legal. Were these things just? Blacks and whites were not supposed to eat together. This was legal in the US. And if they did eat together, whites were to be served first. And some sort of partition, which means even if, can you see what they were doing? Even if we're going to eat together, there must be something in between us that separates us, because we're not supposed to mix. You are inferior, this one is superior, and God loves that. And it was legal. And the painful thing that Christians were teaching that. Now I understand why some people hate Christianity. So when you find someone who hates Christianity, you must ask why. Don't say Baba Joe Satan. You must ask. you must ask why. But tell me why you hate Christianity like this. Maybe they will tell you something, which is many Christians taught these things. Theologians, as you and I, we did theology. They were teaching that whites are superior, blacks are inferior. If they eat together, there must be partition in between. What else? Blacks were not allowed to show public affection towards one another in public. So I was not allowed to kiss my wife in public. Why? Because this offends white people. These things were legal. If you were to violate these things, you were to be fined. There was a fine, there was a heavy punishment waiting for you. So does this mean that everything which is legal, it must be accepted? No. Legal does not mean right. Let's continue. If a black person rode in a car driven by a white person, the black person sat in the back seat. Are you not familiar with this today? We grew up knowing that a black person does not sit in a car where a white person is driving. They rather put what? A dog, instead of allowing a black person to sit there. It was legal. You've never heard. I still you are young. This is the first time you are seeing. So look at what they were supposed, black people, what were supposed to be observed by black people. Never assert or even intimate that a white person is lying. You are not allowed to do that. So what? Okay. Talk to me. Today in this country, it's common. You do it without even thinking that when a white person says something, you assume it is right. We still do it even today. It comes from these things. They were embedded in our minds that a white person does not lie. So you cannot question a white person. It was legal. Who are you to question? Hence why today, any black person who tries to question a white person becomes a threat to a white person, and he must be dealt with. Hence our brothers and sisters, some of us, when they question them, they are being taken to jail, then they start following you because you are becoming a threat. You are not towing this line. Never lay to or overly demonstrate superior knowledge. This one is familiar. In a workplace, a black person will do the work, someone else would come and take the credit. It's common. Those who have worked, sometimes I wish that you can be employed at least for 2 years. You will experience this. You will do the work, and someone else will come and take the credit of your work because you were not allowed to demonstrate superior. Only people who are superior are white people. So even if you can come with the best idea in the world, when it's presented somewhere, it did not come from you. It came from someone else. So I'm not surprised when this brother is still fighting Vodacom. The brother of a place called me idea. I still need to follow what really actually happened. We still have that case in the Concord. So I'm saying, you are not supposed to demonstrate that you are smart as a black person. Look at this number. All passenger stations in the state operated by motor and truck company shall have separate waiting rooms. So black people and white people on this side. These things were allowed. And then we had something called apartheid laws. Now look at South African laws. Look at the 1913 Native Act. 13% of South Africans' land was set aside just for you and me. What happened to the rest? And blacks were prohibited from buying, renting, or using land anywhere outside of the areas that were set aside. So you were not allowed to buy land even if you had means to do so. These things were legal. Hence, I always question those who said we must respect the rule of law. What law are you talking about? Because these things back then were accepted. And I have a problem with all these leaders serving in cabinet positions, serving in parliament, serving in judiciary. These NGOs that are standing for law, we are representing them. We want to make sure South Africa becomes a country that complies with laws. If a law has been set, we must come. What laws are we talking about? I will always question that. Because back then, apartheid was legal. Apartheid was legal. Genocide was legal. By Hitler, that thing was legal. Look at this. The government also enacted past laws, which means which blacks you had to produce. It's in passport. Don't pass. If you want to go to Mhlanga and you reside in Pietermaritzburg, you must produce. Why are you coming to this area? I'm sure we saw this during that week of the political unrest. There were areas we had in Durban North, people were required to produce what? Residential permits. Do you reside here? If you are coming to this place, who are you? If we don't learn about these things, this government will bring back these laws and justify them and justify the reason why they must be brought back. Anything is possible. So you need to know what was a black people's life back then, so that you will be able to see that it's still as if we are going back to the apartheid. And I heard someone crying and say, oh, you are reintroduced, you are bringing back these past laws again. I can't go to Mhlanga anymore. I have to produce. Do I live here? These things were happening. These were legal, accepted. Then you've got Bantu education. The father of apartheid, Erick Verwoerd, is the one who said, blacks should be educated for their opportunities in life. This actually put education of blacks into the hands of the racist government. So I've never heard that someone who doesn't like you, someone who believes that you are inferior, can give you the best education in the world. Do you think someone who believes that you are a second-class citizen, you are not allowed to vote, can give you the best type of education that will make you become greater than himself or herself? Hence, I still have a problem with our curriculum today. The way people are talking about decolonization of this education, but they are not doing it. They are not doing it. It was back then, 1953. So, what did this type of education produce? It produced public servants, produced teachers, produced nurses, produced soldiers, produced police, produced. Think of public service. We are the first generation that will break boundaries by introducing entrepreneurship by force. This education was not producing that. They were teaching you to be a slave. They were preparing us to be slaves, to live on a salary, to serve. This was the type of education. It was introduced there, the Bantu education. So, why I'm saying that we need leadership in South Africa is because we've been in political power for 27 years, and those that have been leading us are afraid to touch these things and transform them radically. They don't want to do that. Why? I think somewhere, somehow, they are still reporting to the master. If you want to liberate black people, you must do it without fear or favor, and you must do it openly and say, we won't allow this type of education. Change the entire curriculum. So this was introduced by Verwoerd himself, who was the father of apartheid. And I still question these things even today. Some of the modules, some of the things that we studied, I still question them, their relevance even today. Are they helping us? No. But they were introduced. At the end of it, we can produce servants, public servants, not entrepreneurs. Then we've got the Group Areas Act, which was in 1950, which divided the land between blacks and whites. And this act established the distinct areas of South Africa in which members of each race could live and work, setting aside the best urban, industrial, and agricultural areas for white. Listen to me. The reason we are still the most unequal society in South Africa is because of this thing. I always ask myself, how come black people are 18 under and most richest people are at Mhlanga? Was it by a mistake? How come you have the richest people living in Sandton and the most blacks are living where? Alexander. Is this thing was designed by God? Did it come from God? It was man-made. So the problems that are facing us were man-made. Hence I said we need leadership who are going to confront these things by force. Fully convinced that if I die in a process, I would have died for a greater good of the country. So they did this. So Mhlanga is for certain people. Palito is for certain people. Zinkwazi all did not coast where there's a beach for certain. Camps Bay for certain people. If you want to buy a house there, you need to be fit. Your pocket needs to. Was this thing did it happen just like that? No. Someone designed it. So if you're going to design something like this, then you are destining black people for suffering. So it's been 27 years and we are still the most unequal society. How many black people are controlling the agricultural sector? You need to go and check these things. Few. The majority of those who are controlling this are still white. And every day when you eat, and we are being told by the health workers, you need to eat healthy. Where are you going to get that? So every day, this system was designed to oppress them. And all these things, can you see there's a word act next to each? Act, which means it was legal. Was it right? No. But it was legal. And I still want to call those who say to us, we must obey the rule of law. When you say the rule of law, what are you talking about? What type of laws are we talking about? Because there are just laws and unjust. And these laws were unjust. So, do you want to tell me today that we don't have those unjust laws? We do. We still have unjust laws. And I still repeat, what the judges did when they were incarcerating President Zuma by departing from ordinary process was unjust. And it must be called such. Therefore, you cannot expect me to obey that because that thing was unjust. So as a result of these acts, look at the 1953. 53. The Public Safety Act and the Criminal Law Amendment were passed, which empowered the government to declare stringent states of emergency and increase penalties for protesting against or supporting the repeal of law. State of emergency. So what do you have in KZN right now? Why do you have soldiers right now? Something has been declared. So the apartheid government they were using law to oppress people from expressing themselves. So can you go and protest freely today? You can't because you've got a soldier. Is that just? So what is happening when government declared a state of emergency is legal by law, but it's going somewhere. If you want to protest, then you're intimidated by soldiers, and sometimes you can even be charged because you were protesting. So people are afraid of protesting in South Africa right now. We are back. That's what I'm saying. You need to know what happened before so that you will understand when these things are coming back slowly. Oh, we are going back to the days of apartheid. Do we allow this thing to happen? I'm sure as you will be watching these sessions on YouTube, whoever you are, I'm sure you will understand why we are being vocal this time around. A friend of mine, Mzize, said to me, Eric, all the sessions that you did in 2018, the session that you did in 2019 under Nsikayezwe Global, the time has come for them to be put in practice. We need to see you now. You used to teach us about being a leader, that leaders are not afraid to confront the injustices. Leaders. I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be vocal. Anything which is unjust, I'm going to call it as it is. Because injustice doesn't mean it can only be done to Ngobeko. It can be done to you. Once you allow it to be done to Ngobeko, then they will say, oh, it's been accepted. Let's move. Hence I said to Temba, if the judges departed from ordinary procedures to incarcerate Jacob Zuma and the community accepts that, it will be done to you the following day. Because they will refer to what they did to the former head of state. Who are you? So they can decide, no, this one is Erick. You know what? Your case is extraordinary. You deserve 15 years in jail. Just like that. Even if there are laws, you say no, but the mean sentence should be 5 years. Or suspended sentence. So I'm saying, whenever you see something which is unjust, call it out. Because Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So Look at the penalties. They were including fines, imprisonment, and whippings. Imagine your mother being whipped for protesting. And we saw it in America. Even the dogs will be sent to them. Your mother and your father. So we can't accept. These things were legal, colleagues. They were legal. I'm saying legal does not mean right. Because these things were legal. Our parents were expected to comply with this. So do you still want to believe that legal is right? It's not. And look at this. In 1960, a large group of blacks in Sharpeville refused to carry their passes. Now, these people now, they're saying today, we're not going to comply. Now, they are fully convinced, we're not going to comply with your laws. What they did, they refused to carry their passes. Remember now, you are protesting against the law. What happened to them? And then the government declared a state of emergency. Then this lasted for 456 days, leaving 69 people dead and 187 people wounded. And this was legal because these people were refusing to care. They said, we are tired of the system. Let me tell you something. The moment you say you are tired, you are about to speak out, you must be prepared for consequences. And hence I've said we need leadership, because leadership or leaders are not afraid of facing the consequences of being vocal against what is not just. Someone is saying to me, how do you know that someone is a leader? You listen to them when they speak. They don't just speak, but they act. So they don't say to you, we need to do this. They say, follow me. I'm going to show you how it's being done. So our fathers did it. Some of them were assassinated, like Martin Luther King. There are so many African leaders that were assassinated because they were revolting against these things. They were fully convinced that if I have to die, I will die. And I've been cautioning our youth. There are some people who were laughing and say Jacob Zuma is a school dropout. What is his highest grade? Grade 4, 2, grade 2. And they were laughing. This generation, this young generation of ours, they were laughing and said, no, a president who never went to school. And I said to them, sometimes you need to think before you speak. These fathers sacrificed something for us to be here today. They were convinced that I have to lose something. You know, the most important thing I must share with you, sacrifices are not the same. Sacrifices are not the same. Some of them lost their wives. Some of them lost their careers. Some of them lost their sons and daughters. Some of them lost their brothers and sisters. Sacrifices are not the same. So they were saying, but there were some leaders who were with Jacob Zuma who went to school. I said, the sacrifice is not the same. Sacrifice is not the same. But because they were fully convinced that we have to fight the system, they were prepared to face the consequences. And even today, there is that risk that we can be targeted. They will say, Erick Sithole is the founder of NMC. He is a global. He must not get jobs from government because he is against the system. So there's that risk, but I'm prepared to face it. You see, you need to know the consequences of what you are about to do. And if you are prepared to face them, then you are a leader. I know when I see one. I know a leader when I see one. I ask them about the consequences. Are you aware of the consequences of what you are doing? Are you prepared to face them? When they say yes, then I know I have a leader here. Yesterday, I was watching Bongo saying, I'm prepared to say it. Free Jacob Zuma, I'm going to say it today. I'm going to say it anywhere. Even if you can put a death sentence, then I said, these are the qualities of a leader. How many ministers today who are serving under this government, who can come up publicly and say, this time around, we are doing something wrong, and I'm not prepared to serve in this cabinet until we change our attitude. How many who can say that? None. Because it's about them getting salaries, securing the bag for their children, and nothing else. We won't be liberated by people who want advanced interest. We will be liberated by those who are prepared to suffer for their convictions. Hence I said we need leadership. Anyone who wants to advance his or her own interest won't liberate us. But anyone who's prepared to suffer for the consequences of their convictions, those are the ones who will liberate us. And we don't have those people. There are few. That's my one. Hence I said when I started this company, I see a world filled with self-led because we have to produce them. So in this session, we are trying to feed you that spirit to say, go and teach others that we have to liberate ourselves. And I will show you how in the next days. I shared some of this in the podcast, but in September I will start. This is part one. I was trying just to give you an overview of why I say we need leadership in South Africa. This is just part one. So in my conclusion, I said, I think this was when there was a protest. I said, you need to stand for your convictions. Even if it means standing alone, just stand. In times of uncertainty, keep standing. And then history has a way of observing those who do such. This is what I call it. Anyone who can do this needs to stand alone. Stand when it is not fashionable to do so. Stand. In the next 10 years, people will be referencing you. That we remember him. He stood alone when it was not fashionable to do so. We remember this minister. We remember this journalist. We remember this lawyer, this advocate. We remember this entrepreneur. He or she decided to stand alone when it was not fashionable. He or she risked everything. Today, I'm risking my business. Because anything can happen to me. People will be afraid to work with me because, hey, Erick is cool. But I'm risking everything. Why? Because I know. Right now, it is not fashionable to do so. But in 10 years to come, then you will realize what I was doing was right. Even back in the apartheid, my mother was telling me we were against even those who were fighting the apartheid regime. We thought they were rebels. But we are realizing now they were doing what is right. So even today, some people will call us rebels, instigators. They're going to give us names. But 5 years to come, 10 years to come, they will realize they were right. They were right. So stand for your convictions. Stand for your convictions. In a workplace, wherever you are, stand for your convictions. Even if you don't know what is on Begapile, stand. History. You go to America, Martin Luther King is a hero. Each and every president who comes into White House, they make sure they go and visit his statue, a museum, but back then it was not fashionable for him to do what he was doing. Steve Biko is our hero, right? But back then there were people who were against. Why are you fighting the apartheid? Just comply. Especially abazali bethu when we are fighting, but awuthula abantu abamenzobulawa. Bayasabela. Not ngoba bebona ukuthi not ngoba bengaboni ukuthi lento wrong. Basabela impilo zethu. But most unqobile bathi ngazala iqhawe la. I was raised by people about you were born to be great. And when I start standing up, bethi awehlise kancane. Umzali wami bethi awehlise kancane mntana. No, I won't do that. No, if I do that, those who look up to me, they will do the same. Then who will liberate the blacks? Who will become a leader in South Africa? So I can't do that. So you must look up to me. You must look up and say, Obuti did this when it was not fashionable to do so. Mbomvo did this when it was not fashionable to do so. Therefore, why should I not? Because remember back then, people sometimes don't understand things. There were people who fought for us to have free or access to the same standard of education. And today's, you can take your child to any school. Did that come for free? No. Someone died for that to happen. So if us today, we are refusing to do that because we want to protect our businesses. If I speak out, I'm denting the image of NMC. I'm denting the image of Joseph Topal, so let me keep quiet. So if we're going to keep quiet, all of us, do you think it would get better? No. So in conclusion, there's a man in history. I think these men were condemned and they were casted out in the wilderness. You know the story. And they said to themselves, we need to go back there. We need to go back there. Because if we don't go back, if we stay here, anything can happen to us. We may die even here in the wilderness. If we go back there, they may still kill us. So we need to decide what we want to do. Let us do one thing. Then they said, we are going back. And you know the story what happened. After they made that decision, God was on their side. Yeah. I think I should leave you with that. Whenever you are making a decision to stand for injustice, you must know you are not alone. Someone greater than you, the greater force is with you. You will be able to escape anything, any threat. It will be dealt with by the greater forces. So, I will leave it there today. It was part 1. We're going to continue with part 2, I think, in September of this session.